5 lessons that I've learned thanks to military life. Did I angle the camera solely so you could see my precious little baby over here? Yes, I did. Some of these are kind of 2-in-1 kind of lessons, so maybe you could argue it's more than 5, but I'm just gonna say it's 5 for the simplicity of it. First lesson, adaptability and flexibility, because I feel like they go hand in hand. I think it's safe to say that one of the things the military is known for is frequent moves. If you've had no experience with the military, if you've had no exposure to the military, the one thing you probably do know is the frequent moving. And because moving is such a stressful, sometimes time-sensitive event in life, most likely something's gonna go wrong, because why not? We all love Murphy's Law, don't we? If you don't know what Murphy's Law is, it's basically the idea of if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. I mean, let's be honest. Has anyone actually had, military or not, let's open it up to everybody. Has anyone actually had a move that was smooth sailing? There were no hiccups, nothing went wrong, no reservations went wrong. You moved from location A to location B with no problem. Has anyone actually had that? Let me know in the comments. Hell, let me know if you have a crazy moving story, because then at least in the comments we can compare to see who had it worse. So how does moving relate to this lesson of adaptability and flexibility? Let me tell you my moving story. So back in 2021, my husband's getting ready to leave the army. We're packing up our house, getting ready to leave the base. In 2021, Texas was hit by a snowstorm. In case you're not aware, Texas is down south. They are not used to snow. They are not used to snowstorms. So the state was not prepared. We went into a state of panic. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from North Carolina. I've seen snow. I've been through snowstorms. It's nothing new to me. It's nothing exciting. I was a grump that I was cold. Luckily, my house did not lose power or water, so I was good. But I had friends who were from Texas, like my neighbor across the street. She was so excited to build a snowman. She was texting me that she had built a snowman. She wanted me to look out the window. She was so excited. And I was so cold and grouchy. As you can guess where this is probably going, with the snowstorm during the middle of a lot of people trying to move, that meant there were a lot of cancellations for moving trucks. That meant moving trucks that were supposed to be in our location couldn't come in. That means moving trucks couldn't go out. So a ton of people had their reservations canceled and had to be pushed back. And because my husband and I are so plan ahead and try and make everything easy on ourselves, we'd packed up half our house at that point. Everything that was non-essential for day-to-day living in a box. My entire kitchen packed up. We were eating off of paper plates. I think we had our air fryer out. And I had even gone across the street to my friend and borrowed a single pot and pan just to get by the last few days. So with the snowstorm, the typical concern is usually the ice on the road. And Texas not being used to snow was not prepared to deal with the ice on the roads. We managed to go to the grocery store at one point and we took the side road. That road was absolutely destroyed. I guess they literally used any machinery that they could get their hands on and were literally just like, I don't know, just chipping away at the ice, and along with the ice, the asphalt, apparently. Like, that road was just destroyed. It felt like we needed 4-wheel drive to get through that road. And then, of course, the typical panic at the grocery store, you know, meat's bought out, toilet paper's bought out. It's like COVID all over again, people freaking out. Normally, that would not be a concern for us because we have a deep freezer. But being the responsible people that we are and preparing for the move, we had been eating out of our deep freezer and emptying it. So it was empty at that point. We managed to make it through like the next week, 2 weeks. I don't remember at this point. But yeah, that was pretty darn inconvenient timing for a snowstorm. Once the roads started clearing up and we managed to reschedule our move out with housing and try and get our truck rescheduled, because of course now all the reservations from before had been pushed back on top of the reservations that were already scheduled for this later date to begin with. We did manage to get our truck. I think the only thing we didn't get for our reservation was like a dolly, but you know what? That's why I lift. So I did have to help my husband lift the heavy appliances, but we did it. But back to the idea of adaptability, flexibility. You learn pretty quick that sometimes you just need to go with the flow. If you want more examples of how the military can teach you these lessons, have you ever tried taking a vacation or having your service member take off very specific dates to plan a wedding, go to a wedding, something like that? It never goes the way you want it to. I feel like all the examples I'm going to use can actually be used for every single lesson in some way, shape, or form, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, you basically just have to go with the flow with everything that's thrown at you. My husband being out in the field for extra days that we weren't anticipating, having to move an appointment, or having to find someone else drive me to an appointment, like when I had LASIK and couldn't drive myself. The day that they're supposed to leave for deployment gets delayed, or hell, a delay for when they get back from deployment. There's all kinds of scenarios that will teach you that you just have to be flexible. You just have to take the information that you're given and just kind of roll with it. And that ultimately it's really not a big deal. I do feel like maybe some people don't learn this lesson, and honestly, if you don't, it's just going to make your life more stressful in the military. I think in general now, more often than not, I'm more likely to just be like, have a moment of disappointment or being upset, and then it's like, okay, how do we fix this? How do we move on from this? I'm not really sure what else to say to wrap that lesson up, so we're just going to move on. The next one is independence and confidence. Again, 2-in-1 deal in my mind. So for me, this actually kind of stems off of just moving in general, but like because I moved into military life, to me it kind of still applies. But this is the lesson that I am probably most grateful for, because one of my fears while still in college, and as I was preparing to graduate, preparing to figure out what's going to happen next, one of the things I was really afraid of is, am I capable of being an actual adult? And what I mean by that is, I've mentioned it before, but growing up, I have had a lot of things done for me by my parents because they wanted me to focus on school, not have to worry about things. So like something easy as paying a phone bill, how to even get my own phone plan or set up internet, or those little adulting things, I was actually kind of afraid of whether or not I'd be able to do it, like bills. Luckily, my husband had been living on his own already for a couple of years because he had joined the Marine Corps, was out in California living on his own. So like he already knew how to do that stuff and could, kind of help me. But when we moved to Texas together and he basically was instantly deployed within the first month of us being there, I was going to have to do all that stuff on my own. I do think I was lucky in a sense where I only had to care for myself and my cats if you count them. But my household was just me. I didn't have children. I don't have children. So I think in that sense, I was lucky where I just had to keep myself alive, basically, until my husband could get back. Being alone while my husband was gone, it taught me that I am self-reliant. I am independent enough to take care of everything. Take care of the chores around the house, take care of the maintenance around the house, take care of appointments that I may have to do for me or the cats, pay my bills, manage any accounts online. Like, I proved to myself that I could do it. Now, again, this is something that you can learn just from living out on your own as well, but it is something also that can be applied to the military life. Decision making and resourcefulness. Being resourceful, again, I kind of see it as a 2-in-1 thing. Maybe you see it as two different things, but let's talk about it. Military life will require you to really step it up. Your damsel in distress phase of life will be very short-lived in the military. It has to be in order for you to survive, because again, your service member is going to be gone lots of times, okay? And again, we've talked about Murphy's Law. When your service member is gone, something will probably go wrong. Because why not? That is the ideal time for things to go wrong. Here's another story I have for you. A week before Nico was supposed to get back from his deployment, which the time for his return home from deployment had already shifted about 5 times, which was an annoyance in itself. But when his return date was finally finalized, because, at the time I didn't believe it. I think ultimately it was the last time the date got changed. A week prior to that date, my house flooded. Because what a time for it to flood. My water heater basically, I don't know. There was just a loud noise and suddenly I'm hearing water gushing out, and the next thing I know, my cats are frantically running around trying to find dry ground, and I'm just like, what the heck is going on? Oh, and it was MLK weekend, so of course I was also concerned that maintenance wouldn't be available to help me. Here's where I say like the resourcefulness comes in. You're gonna learn that you need to find out specific numbers to have on hand for whenever you're going to be living alone. If you're in base housing, the housing office number, the maintenance number, maybe lawn and garden, I don't know, the commissary, daycare, schools on base. Like, you're going to have to know those certain numbers. You're going to have to look them up ahead of time, keep a list of it, you know, the MP's numbers, emergency numbers. You just need to have all those things on hand. You learn pretty quick how to be resourceful. You start finding out connections, who can help you with what. I don't know how else to describe it. You just become resourceful. I don't think there's really much more to say than that. So I called the maintenance number. They have an emergency number, and they connected me with someone, told me how to turn off the water heater. Of course, I was too short, so then I had to go run outside, find my neighbor, ask him to turn it off. Luckily, there was only like 6 inches of water in my house. And then I got the emergency line to dispatch a group to help clean up my house. And oddly enough, they said they had 3 other houses that same day with the same exact problem as me, where their water heater just busted and flooded their house. So that was fun. To be honest, this situation was probably not as good of an example for like the decision making lesson I was trying to tell you. As the spouse that is still at home, there are times where you will have to make the decision for your household, for your family. There are people who choose to move back home or leave their current station when their spouse is deployed, and then they come back and reestablish their housing. But when you give up your original housing and you come back to reestablish a new one, you're essentially having to do that by yourself. You have to make the decision of, is this a good location? Is this a good house? Doing all the paperwork for it, you know, enrolling your children into school if you have children, reestablishing your utilities. You have to learn to step up and make those decisions for your household. I stayed in my house when he deployed because I didn't want to deal with all that. But I know there are people who do move. There will be plenty of times where some sort of situation may arise and you need to make a decision right then and there, and you can't reach your spouse or you can't discuss it with your spouse because different time zone, no phone service, whatever. I think that also shows the importance of having certain discussions with your spouse, the service member, so that you guys are on the same page and so that you're prepared to make those kinds of decisions if the situation arises. The next one, resilience. With the military comes many, many, many emotional up and downs. It is a roller coaster for your emotions. You will have days that are just nonstop stressors due to deployments, maybe due to international events while they're deployed, to being happy that they came back from the field after a week of being gone, or maybe they're coming back from deployment, to just feeling lonely day to day because the service member isn't there. One of the things I really learned to embrace, thanks to military life, honestly thanks to deployment, because he wasn't here, as a person who hates being alone and who hates doing anything alone, I really learned how to embrace it. And honestly, the only way to survive is to embrace it. I feel like this is a topic that could be its own separate video, but just to kind of touch base on it, you have to learn to be the backbone for your household. Again, my household was me and 2 cats, so like I really just had to look out for myself. But a lot of my friends had children, and I could see how it affected them differently. They had to step up in a different way. This means not only are they, as parents, are having to learn how to cope with the loneliness, the stressors, the emotional up and downs that they're constantly having to face, they now have to teach their children the same thing. I feel like all of these lessons really overlap, and they really focus on you becoming a better person, you growing as a person, assuming you learn these lessons, embrace the lessons, and whatnot. The last lesson that I'm going to mention is friendship. When I was living the military life, that is when I got my biggest lesson in friendships, in the different kinds of friendships, in reflecting on my own role in these friendships, and honestly understanding friendships better and appreciating my friendships more. And basically, I'm kind of gonna cheat by leaving it at that because I have a whole video planned that is actually specific to the kinds of friendships that I learned about thanks to the military life. So I guess just keep an eye out for that video. To be honest, I don't know how effectively I explained these lessons because I feel like they all overlap, and I feel like they're all just concepts that we all know. So maybe I could have been clearer with better examples, or maybe I could have explained the examples better. I'm not sure. What I can tell you for sure, though, is that military life is hard. Yes, duh. But it was a phase of my life that really helped me discover myself, really grow up in a sense, and learn so much about myself and learn how to be a better adult. I don't know, a better person. I remember when we were still in, I would hear a lot of spouses complain because it was hard, they didn't like it. And by all means, it is not an easy lifestyle. It definitely requires a specific mindset, a certain type of person to understand that they need to embrace the lessons that come with this lifestyle and embrace whatever's thrown at them. Because trust me, a lot of things will be thrown at you. I just really hope that whoever watches this will understand what I'm trying to say, and that I assume if you're watching this, you are probably about to live the military life, or maybe you're trying to figure out how to cope with the military life. I just want you to know that the military life has so much to offer you if you are willing to be open and accepting of it. I honestly loved it. I think where I was in life did have something to do with it, because that was the same time where I decided I needed to change my mentality. I had horrible victim mentality. I needed to change some things in my life, take some accountability. So I think that mentality overflowed into the rest of my life and helped me learn how to cope with military life. I just feel like there's a lot of videos that are always talking about how sucky military life is because you're so lonely and you're always moving and stuff like that. And while, yes, those things can be true, there are still so many positive things you can take out of military life. And yeah, basically, I just wanted to make a video showing that there are some positive things, like life lessons to make you a better person.